Many people are familiar with the story of Ludwig van Beethoven. This man, in spite of being deaf, managed to become a world-renowned composer. What a terrible fate, to have the sense most integral to your art be taken away from you. Similar is the story of John Milton, an English poet, who, by 1655 at age 48, was blind. His ability to write was threatened, and as a result, his relationship with God became complicated. In On His Blindness, Milton is struggling to understand what God expects of him now that he is losing his sight. He's upset about wasting that one talent which is death to hide, line 3, which is a biblical reference to the parable of the talents, Matthew 25:14-30, in which two people invest their talents. In the story, talents are money, while another just hides his talent in a hole and is punished. Milton feels that God expects him to use his talent for writing poetry in a way that honors him. Milton is frustrated that his lack of sight is preventing him from serving God when he wants to so badly. Though my soul more bent to serve therewith my Maker and present my true account, lines 4-6. Milton's true account refers to his religious poetry. Much of his poetry was concerned with God's relationship to mankind, and he considered it a serious duty to write poetry that simultaneously made God's mysterious ways more clear to people and honored God with its craft. At line 7, Milton wonders if God still expects him to keep writing without his sight, then decides that God is more forgiving than he was giving him credit for. Surely, knowing of his condition and strong desire to please him, God wouldn't expect anything that he couldn't possibly accomplish, nor would he punish him. The last half of the poem has a calmer tone. It's almost like Milton realizes that while he's writing, that people can serve God in many different ways. It's the intent and the grace with which one deals with hardship that counts. Who best bear his mild yoke, they serve him best. Within 14 lines, Milton has depicted a wavering, then regaining of faith. While the poem discusses Milton's blindness, his condition is used to explore his faith. Like Milton's other religious poetry, the purpose is to decide what a person's relationship with God and his or her role on earth should look like. At first, he was afraid he would be punished for wasting his talent, and seemed almost distrusting of God, who presumably might have the power to cause or prevent his blindness, still expecting him to write. Then he decided that bearing his blindness gracefully and doing the best he could would satisfy him. This poem is a traditional sonnet containing 14 lines and using the Italian sonnet rhyme scheme ABBA, ABBA, CDE, CDE. In a sonnet, there's usually a turn or a change of attitude during the latter half of the poem. As we've discussed, Milton's faith takes a journey in this short poem, and his change of perspective is signaled by the line, "But patience to prevent, that murmur soon replies." The but indicates that his initial dread of punishment might be misguided. In terms of figurative language, Milton uses light as a metaphor for vision. He reflects on how his light is spent and asks if God would exact day labor light denied. He also makes an allusion or a reference to another work when he frets about wasting his talent, the biblical parable. John Milton wrote On His Blindness to express his frustration and wavering faith that his blindness brought on. At first, he doesn't understand why God would make him blind if writing, his great talent, requires sight, or what he is expected to do about it. By the end of the poem, he has decided that his God is patient and forgiving. He just needs to keep trying his best and to bear his disability gracefully. The poem is in a traditional sonnet form and employs figurative language to illustrate Milton's ideas.